Hi, I've brought a demo. I'm going to put it down so you guys can see it at eye level, but it's a hologram. So when we think about NFTs, we all look at our NFTs on flat device screens. And I ask you guys, is that going to be enough? Or at some point in time, are we going to realize that we want something more, where we can look at NFTs and experience them in a three-dimensional space within our physical realm? That's what this is all about, is learning how to play with your NFTs with the light from the pixels in new and innovative ways so that it's not just an NFT as a flat JPEG. So how do we do this, and how did we get here? So there's a few different ways that you can go about playing with NFTs as light. On our screens, they're just pixels of light, but in our physical space, they're beams of light. So by making single-plane holograms, which if you think of like the Tupac concert, the Freddie Mercury concert, like the Whitney Houston concert, all of those are single-plane holograms. And they take source video that has a transparent background, and then they put it on a 45-degree angle where, when seen with the human eye, it actually gives the illusion that it's a hologram and that the singer is actually there. There's also an ABBA concert right now doing the same thing. You can use single-plane holograms also in holographic units. So if you're making a JPEG, make sure that there's enough negative space around it, so that way it gives the illusion that the image is actually like bringing on three-dimensional form. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. So what I just showed you here is what's called a quad split hologram. And in essence, the single plane hologram just gives you one vantage point from the front. So if you went to the sides, you don't see much. If you go to the back, you see it in reverse. But with the quad split hologram, if you have north, south, east, west configuration of your image and pair it with a holographic prism pyramid using that same 45-degree angles, it then becomes what you saw in person. You could see front, side, and back of your source image. Next slide, please. So it kind of makes you think, well, what else? If that pyramid has corners, but yet you can still see it in the round, if we remove the corners, what happens then? So if you replace the pyramid shape and change the geometry so it's actually cylindrical, you then would have to take your source image NFT and anamorphically distort it, like the distorted ape up there, and distort it in a way that matches the circumference of the cylinder that you're pairing it with. That way, when you pair the cylinder with the distorted anamorphic NFT, it appears like a hologram in the round. And then, of course, we're all very familiar with stereoscopic NFTs as well, using the red and blue overlays to make it look like it's three-dimensional in real life. Next slide, please. But beyond that, and this is where we really start to think about utilizing and seeing NFTs as light and bringing that light into our physical space in new and different ways. So if you take a three-dimensional sculpted NFT, like a GLB, and have multiple projection points in a physical space, and project it onto floating vaporized particles, such as smoke, fog, mist, whatever, then you'll actually create an NFT floating in real space. And it gives the illusion of a hologram. And all of this is to kind of get away from us looking at NFTs on flat TV displays and flat device screens and flat phones. And then, of course, there are also other ways to experience NFTs, like with LED masks and, of course, backpacks. Next slide, please. So how is this going to shape how we interact with NFTs in the future? We all know that Web 1 was consume the digital. Web 2 is create the digital. We're in Web 3, which is commodify the digital. But what if Web 4 is coexisting with the digital in our physical space? Who here has seen Star Trek Next Generation? Yeah? So you guys know what a holodeck is. Maybe Web 4 is where we actually pull the digital realm into our physical realm in a way where it's a seamless experience realizing that not every household will have the opportunity to enter the metaverse with a mask or an Oculus, but instead to be able to bring the digital sphere into our physical realm through volumetric capture points in a physical space that picks up all of the human movement, and then can change dynamic NFTs that are then moving and changed and affected by the human within that room, which can be possible. So thinking about how to play with NFTs as light. When I was working at Disney World, Disney has a lot of, they utilize different ways of light. They use them with lasers, they use them with quad split and single plane holograms. They use light in stage lighting, but the idea behind it is that they're so experimental and they know how to play with that light. So when you're thinking of displaying your NFTs in a physical space, ask yourself, how does this NFT look if it's projected onto a transparent plane? How does it look if it's projected onto chrome? How does this NFT look if the light is projected from above, from below, if it's projected onto mist, if it's projected onto bubbles floating? This type of thinking, getting beyond that screen, is what is going to bring us closer to that coexistence. Because as much as we are building Web3 in the metaverse, and it's so important that we do so, it's not just about us taking our physical selves into the digital realm, because it's a two-way road. We really have to think about bringing that digital realm into our physical realm in new ways. And then, of course, Web 5 will probably be combined because we'll all have advanced robotics embedded into ourselves. But yeah, so if there's any questions, there's a few minutes for Q&A. If anyone would like to ask questions. Yes, sir.
What is the best large hologram NFT display that you use?
Well, it's tricky because the best is subjective. It depends on what your application is going to be. If you wanted a 6-foot display, I would suggest getting a proto hologram unit, which is a single plane, which is like the first slide. So then you would make the initial NFT image with negative space around it, and then pair it with that proto hologram unit. Correct. It's just with the proto hologram units in any single plane hologram, it's going to be viewed only from one side. If you wanted to have it front, side, back, then you would need to have a pyramid. And it could be any size. You saw a size that was compatible with an iPad Pro. If you make a pyramid that's super big and have the projections coming from above, then you can have a life-size hologram as well. Proto Hologram is doing the telephone style box ones, but those are single plane. But this is the thing. Not many companies are experimenting with this, and we need it. There's a necessity for this in the future. So all of the creative minds who opted not to go to the pool party today and instead want to learn and build the future, this is your chance because the race is on. This is your chance to take these ideas and run with it. Because this is where we're heading. We're heading towards holograms. So to answer your question, there isn't a company out there yet. And that's my challenge to you. Thank you all.